Alex White, who is a novelist. Look out for his debut novel, Every Mountain Made Low, coming out to bookstores next November, 2016, not this November. Don't get too excited. Gotta wait. He's also a podcaster. You can hear him on the Gearheart and Disasterpiece Theatre. The re makes it fancy. Welcome to the stage, Alex White.
I wasn't told I was going to have to follow animal drugs. That is a thing. So like a lot of people who have been in difficult situations, I've traveled through time. I've begun to stretch and distort it. I'm just kidding. This is a story about me and how it almost killed me. When I was in college, I was really prone to UTIs from all the sex I wasn't having. And so it became important to go to the doctor and make sure that everything's okay, because my mother, who sends me texts about drunks on the road at 2 a.m., every 2 a.m., it's weird, was like, you might get pyelonephritis. And I was like, that is not a disease from getting pies alone, right? Because I definitely have that. No, it's a kidney infection, you die. Well, maybe. So you, delirium, renal failure, that kind of stuff. So I was like, hey, you know what? Maybe I should check into that. So here's my notes, by the way. I'm gonna, behind the curtain, there are notes. So I decided I'm gonna go to the doctor. I'm gonna go for an intravenous pyelogram. Has anybody had this? Any, by applause? No? All right, the word means the same thing. It's about kidneys, okay? And, they're like, it's low risk, it's just an x-ray. And then they're like, we're gonna pump you full of 20 cc's of diazotroic acid for you science geeks. That's called hypate. It's about the body mass of a hamster. Okay? So just grind up the hamster, put it in a syringe, inject it right into your veins. So they're like, all right, so here we go. Here comes the hamster. And then they're like, get undressed. And I'm like, all right. Why not? So they hook you up with the butt gown. You guys have had the butt gown, right? By applause. Butt gowns. And I get naked, and then we get on the X-ray, we take the photos, and that's when things get weird. Okay? So the doctor, the radiologist, not a doctor, beforehand is like, are you allergic to anything? And I'm like, yeah, I'm allergic to these medications. So we're like, great. Well, 2 minutes after, I'm starting to feel a little itchy. Is everything okay? And he's like, yeah, it's fine, probably. Right? And then I start to kind of get a little more like, ooh, I don't know about this. At which point, he's like, okay, well, let me go talk to my boss. And his boss comes in there, the actual doctor comes in there. And he's like, what happened? And I'm like, can I see a mirror? And they're like, no. So we're going along, we're having a good time. Me slowly getting itchier and kind of feeling like prickly. And the radiologist at this point is like, what are you allergic to? And I was like, cats and grass. I didn't say cats and grass. Is that important? He's like, yes, that is fucking important. And the doctor's like, that's not important, get out. So we're like, we need some Benadryl. So we decided to give me Benadryl via IV in each arm, which is some great shit. No, it's not. Yeah, for children, maybe. I get high like adults. So we get Benadryl in each arm. We got these little butterfly clips. You guys have seen the butterfly clips? They look like butterflies. They're pink. And it's not working. And at this point, I should mention that I live in a very small town that I went to school in. This is where I was getting this checkup done. And they call an ambulance, and the ambulance has to come from the hospital. which is across the street. So you hear this, and then it's there. And then these guys are coming in, and they're like, oh, hey, oh! All right, we need to get you to the hospital. And I'm like, can I see your mirror? So they put me on top of a stretcher, or they let me climb on top of a stretcher. We get out there, and it's the middle of Christmas. I'm there on Christmas break. This is college, many years ago, unfortunately. And small town, the wind catches my butt gown. And it blows it up over my face on Main Street. And then I'm like, all right, well, I can die now. That was it. So we smooth it back down. Somebody else may be dying. Somebody else. You're not on the stage! So we're like, we smooth it back down, right to the hospital. And at the hospital, they're like, you know, let's see what they've been giving him, some Benadryl. And then the nurse is like, what are these, butterfly IVs? No one even uses those anymore. I'm like, now is not the time to be critiquing this. What is wrong with me? Can I see a mirror? No, you don't want to see a mirror. So, you know, my mom, they called my mom. My mom is on the way. And I'm like, where's my mom? And they're like, we made her wait out front. And this is where things start to get bad because they're like, we needed her to fill out some forms. And I'm like, what are the forms? And they're like, don't worry about it. And things start to get really weird because have you ever not needed to breathe? Because at this point, I'm just going through the motions. Like when I stop breathing, I just stop breathing. I'm not like we are right now. Now all of you are, by the way, wondering if you're stopping breathing. You are. So it gets worse and worse and worse. And then I hear one of the doctors say, if we don't give him something, we're gonna lose him. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Because I decided to keep breathing, even though I didn't need to. I was like, I'm awake, I might as well. And then, so they put in other IVs into my wrists. I have quadrilateral IVs, which is a word that I learned explicitly because of this experience. And all of a sudden, it's like this cold burn. I don't know how else to describe it. It's coming up my arm. And I surge up off the table and grab one of the nurses, who he is like smiling. He's like, I know. And I imagine myself very Batman, so just try to imagine that instead of me. Because I'm like, what did you give me? And I'm like screaming in his face, and he's like, it's fine, it's epinephrine, you're fine. And it's this huge ice cream headache. And in that moment, I can hear my heartbeat monitor, and it seems like it's going slower. Does anybody know the name of the phenomenon where your brain starts sampling faster because you're about to die? Because it doesn't have a name, by the way. I looked it up for this talk. And, but it's true. You start to, you can remember more. It dumps to long-term memory. I'm guessing for the next explorer that finds your corpse. And so anyway, I fall back on the table and I'm unconscious and I wake up like hours later. I have no idea. I was like, 5 minutes have passed. And they're like, wrong. 8 hours have passed. And my mom's there and she's clearly been crying. My sister's been crying. And everybody's been crying except me. Because I didn't know to. No one told me I should until that doctor was like, we're gonna lose him. That's when I was like, fuck you. And I'm like, can I see a mirror? And they're like, yes, you may. Because it's my mom. And she hands me the mirror, and I look like a newborn child. And that's how I was reborn in medical science. Thank you.
the most fascinating story about pee I've ever heard.